and I will stop my share.
Okay. All right, well, welcome everyone. So I am going to keep this at a pretty high level where we have, I believe we're allocated 30 minutes each, right, Jeff?
Yep.
So I'm gonna definitely give you a good overview of portfolio Kanban in education, but I'm just gonna scratch the surface. So I'm just gonna show you how we, in collaboration with Jeff, have envisioned, the way to visualize how education could leverage what we refer to as a Kanban system. Okay, so let me show you what we have going on. This is me. I will not go into this. Jeff did the best intro I could have imagined, although he said Bo was his dad, and I'm like, that's kind of weird. But anyways, okay, that's not what you meant. Okay, good. Okay, cool. All right. So I'm going to share with you this is one of the image that we show on our website, and it was been in collaboration with L-EAF, and it's meant to kind of go as high as we can. What if, Jeff told me one day, what if we took over everything? And I'm like, sure, let's do that. What is everything? And so far we thought it would be at a district level. I mean, could you go a level above to a country level? Maybe, but let's stop at district, okay? The idea is that could district start getting organized and put a vision together of how they would like to conduct the way education is provided within their district. We then imagine that a district would be made of various institutions, and those institutions might have various faculties, and each faculty might have multiple classes or courses offered in each of these faculties. So if you were in the district of Phoenix in Arizona and you had 2 institutions and you had 4 faculties, finance, whatever, this is kind of the high level model we thought about. Now, all I'm showing you here is just a bunch of little boards that are connected to each other, but I'm going to give you a real example in a second. Before I go too far, I want to make sure that I give at least a chance for people who hear me saying Kanban, that at least explain what this concept is. So again, I'm going to go very high level, very introductory, but here it is. Kanban is nothing else than visualizing something on a card. A Kanban is literally the card itself. The idea is if a company like Toyota is able to take the process of building a car and using a card system called Kanban as one of their 16 pillars in their Toyota production system, could we apply this to other industries? Now, this was pioneered in the 1950s by Toyota, and it did start in manufacturing, but in the last few years, what we've noticed is that this Kanban system kind of works everywhere. In fact, if you go to many restaurants, you might notice that they're actually using Kanban, they're just not telling you. So Subway uses Kanban. McDonald's uses Kanban. Like when you look behind the counter, you'll see each order is literally a little electronic card for the kitchen to know which next sandwich to make. Where I'm going with this is that over the last 20 years, I've been able to experiment with Kanban in the software world, and then in many other industries where we were able to take knowledge workers and visualize on cards what we're trying to accomplish, what are we trying to deliver. So with that in mind, if it works in manufacturing and it works in software, could we push it in other areas? And what's interesting with the education space is every time I talk to a teacher recently, they already use words that I'm used to. And they're like, Dimitri, I'm a teacher and I'm actually trying to implement some agile, and I've built a Kanban board in my classroom. And I'm like, that's fantastic. So the idea here is that Kanban is very simple. It relies only on 9 things, and they're all here on this slide. And all it's about is starting with the thought process of, and this is why I think it will work very well in the education space, is you don't have to reinvent everything. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Why don't you just tell us how you run your classroom today or how your school operates, and let's just start with what you do now. The only trick we're going to do is we're going to let you do exactly what you do today, but all we're going to ask you is to agree to keep getting better. And the way we're going to do that is by respecting everything you have in place, but by encouraging acts of leadership at every level. And what we mean by this is anyone involved in a classroom setting, whether it's the teacher, the assistant, a student, a parent, or anyone can generate new ideas on, well, could we do this a little bit differently, or could we improve it this way? The idea is that once you start visualizing something in a Kanban system, it starts being very simple and obvious where you could focus your next effort, whether it's on the next piece of work or the next piece of improvement. So from a 4-principle perspective, all I wanted to put out there is that you can pretty much hit me with any industry, anything you're doing, and we could probably represent it on a Kanban system. Remember, all it is, it's taking something, representing it visually on a card, and then moving this card on some sort of process or visual representation. At the bottom, I just wanted to make sure to highlight, now that I've shared the principles, which are just the things to get you started, that really what we mean in the education space and in any space is very simple. Visualize your workflow. Now, for a student, their workflow could be as simple as my next assignments or the next module that I have to learn. So for a student, it's very quick to understand, well, instead of giving me my homework, as an email, you're giving me a card for each piece of homework. So for a student, it's just changing the visual interface. The reason this is very important is that what we've noticed is that when people, human beings, visualize their work, they get it done faster. So the idea here is on a Kanban system is, what if you could take everything a district is trying to do, or a school or a classroom, and you just put it all visually on the board, and then you let all the players, who could be students or parents or anyone else involved in this, to really start using these cards to understand what's expected of them, and then also deliver it to complete something. One of the things that's very important in a Kanban is the second bullet I have here, which is limiting your work in progress. One of the things that's kind of the secret to getting so much work done is you don't work on 20 things at once. It's the opposite. You work on only one thing at a time by limiting your work in progress, and therefore by making sure that you stay focused. So one of the things that we know works very well is, there's kindergarten school called Montessori, and if you think of Montessori, it's very simple. You pick an activity, you take the toys or the pieces associated to this activity, you take them, you play with them, and once you're done, you put them back into the box and pick another activity, which means that from a young age, you're taught to say, don't try to do 5 things at once. Pick one thing, finish it, and put it back before you start the other one. And this is exactly what this is all about. It's Montessori at an adult level or at a school level, where you keep presenting the next activity and it gets done. The other thing that we found in terms of measuring and managing the flow in education is that students, and this is not news, but learn at different speed. 2 students in the same class might be learning and understand things at very different speed. In a Kanban system, each student can work at the speed that works best for them. If a student is doing very well and wants to read more than everyone else, then they just keep taking more cards. Where another student might take a little bit longer and need more support, then they can collaborate and work with someone to give them that help. So please know that those Kanban properties, once used in an education system, we've started to see a lot of really great usage in the classroom and in institutions. The fourth one for me is very important, is if you want someone to succeed, then tell them how to play the game. And what we mean by this is if you want someone to learn how to play chess, then explain the rules of chess very clearly to the person. In a Kanban system, making the process policy explicit means that everything you need to know in succeeding in a classroom or delivering something in an institution would be visually, explicitly said on the board so that everyone would know, when do I know it's okay to move a card, or when do I know it's okay to do something? Well, it's all explicit in the system. And lastly, and this is the topic I'll end my session today with in a second, is the spirit of continuous improvement. It's another Japanese word called kaizen, and we believe that when you infuse the spirit of continuous improvement in everything you do, it tends to make people innovate and creative and always seeking to do better. So conceptually, that's all Kanban is. When we look at a portfolio Kanban system, it could be visualized as such. Now this, I won't lie to you, feels more like what we do in enterprises when we work with large organization, where there might be a strategic level, a discovery level, and a delivery level, where if you look at this from an education perspective, the strategy level could be your entire school who makes strategic decision for the school. Your discovery level could be all your teachers working together to produce the best content and the best classes for their students. And then the delivery level would be each classroom conducting their courses and classes together. So I'm giving you, and I wanted to do this on purpose, to give you how, not connected to education, but in general, a portfolio Kanban system, all it does is it connects things together. And it makes it very obvious that if a student is working on module number 3, why are they working on this? Well, because it's connected to an outline that's connected to a course that's connected to a domain of expertise, and everything is supposed to be making sense with each other. So just before I go to Kaizen, which is my last section, I just want to show you, let me go back here, how this, and again, this is a very simple view that I'm going to give you. Jeff and his team do things much more advanced than I'm about to show you, but this was conceptually the best way for me to explain it. I built a board for a faculty and I kept everything simple. The board is pretty much to do, in progress, done. The faculty has 2 classes, but they're thinking of a 3rd class called future class. Below here, I showed you 2 classes, class 1 and class B. All I'm doing here, and I would not do this on a single board. For the demo today, these should be probably 3 separate boards that are connected, okay? But right now, for the interest of the presentation, if I were to take class A, which at a faculty level, I would say, you know what? Let's start class A. As soon as I did that, it signaled that everything related to class A is now available. I'll do it again. Is the little lines here show you the connections between the cards. So if I move this one, then all the cards connected to it, which are these ones, would turn yellow because this card just moved to a yellow column. I'll do the same thing here with these purple cards. I'm going to move this purple class into in progress. And of course, all now the purple cards in the classroom have the okay to start, which gives the trigger for students now to start going at it. So again, I kept it simple, but let's say student number 1 would take the module 1. It would alert the class or the teacher that at least one student or one module has started. If that module gets completed, it turns green. The next one comes in, it comes yellow. And now we know that the class has ended something, is in the middle of doing something, and has something left to start. Module 2 gets completed. We're now 2 green things out of 3. And comes lastly, the final paper. The student takes it, finishes it, and now we know the completion of the class. Again, keep in mind, I kept this as simple as possible. What I'm trying to show you is, can you visualize the entire life cycle of the learning for a student? And the answer is yes. It just depends how you break down your class, and every teacher we've worked with does it differently. So they might create a module, and in the module, create a bunch of tasks for their students to say, well, I need you to read, chapter 1, right? And then, or chapter 2 here. And in there, I want to give you 2 tasks for you to complete. And in chapter 3, right, I would like you to read these 2 things or these 3 things. And then there's these things to complete. What I've seen teachers do is literally turn every card into step-by-step instructions for students to be successful at understanding what is expected from them to complete the class. So that's it, and I'll give time for questions in a second. I just want to show you the last slide, which is the kaizen slide. So all I did to you guys today is I talked about Kanban at a high level to give you kind of the premise of it. It's just cards. Then I moved to explain to you how we could connect everything through a portfolio Kanban system. And I give you a simple example in an education setting. And lastly, I want to leave you with this, which is why I think it will work very well in a classroom and in an education space, is that spirit of continuous improvement will help promote that you can always do things better. You can always do it differently. And I think that by giving the opportunity for people to improve the way they learn and the way the next people will be able to learn will make a huge difference for building the ideal learning system and visualizing it on simple little cards. So that's all I had for you guys today. Was a very, very high level introduction to Kanban Zone as a source of information about Kanban, and also a platform, as Jeff mentioned, that is used by L-EAF and other educational providers to manage everything.